We're good. Sorry. That's just me to get set up for the meeting. I'm sorry.
I want to watch myself watching the meeting.
But it's not as big as the wall.
No.
We have been doing YouTube since COVID.
Years.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This officially opens the meeting of the City of Fairway Board of Zoning Appeals, and welcome everybody who's here. Before we get started with the new business, we must take care of some old business, and that would be approval of the minutes. So that's an administrative or housekeeping task that we're going to jump into right now before we actually proceed to the more important things set for the agenda. So I think, Kim, the minutes have all been distributed to board members. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So the chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I move we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And I'll call for the vote. I guess all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, well, thanks. The motion carries. The minutes are adopted. And now we're going to proceed to the new business tonight, which is a public hearing to consider a variance request to encroach into the required setback for a fence on the corner of a lot submitted by Megan Sparks, the property owner, for property located at 6148 Fontana Street in Fairway. And this was continued from the meeting on June 27th. The way in which we'll proceed tonight is that we will hear a staff report regarding this, and then we'll get a chance to ask questions of the staff. And then after that, we'll have a representative of the applicant come forward, identify yourself, and we'll kind of go through the 5 criteria, or your answers to those questions, to focus on that, because that's the statutory basis on which we must consider any kind of variance. Okay? So, is there a staff report?
Yes, there is. The applicant requested a variance for a fence to encroach into the minimum street side setback. The lot is a standard corner lot with a side setback of 18 feet. The applicant is proposing the fence will be located 12 feet from the back of the curb. Applicant did submit the responses to the 5 criteria. The public hearing was noticed on July 5th, and the applicant mailed certified notices on May 27th.
Thank you. Has there been any opposition from any neighbors that's been registered?
No, we've received no comments at all.
Okay. So
And staff do recommend approval.
Okay. Okay. And can you maybe fill us in, Mr. Lonnie, on why the staff feels like this is an appropriate variance?
The reason why, I mean, our feeling is you can build a house closer to the side setback than how the fence ordinance is written up. So we don't see any effect of the placement of the fence 12 feet from the curb.
Okay. Any questions by the board for Mr. Lonnie?
I had a couple of questions. How close can they build a house?
the setback.
So what's the setback from the house? If it's not 18 feet, is it 15?
It's measured from the back of the curb.
Curb.
So for a house, you measure on a corner lot from the back of the curb. But on the fence, you have to start your measurement from the property line. So that first 10 to 12 foot of right-of-way, you don't get to count that. And
I appreciate the clarification.
yeah. And I will add that I believe what she is proposing is only a 4-foot cedar fence, not a full privacy either.
Any other questions?
I guess I'm not, is the 18 feet, is the question along the south property line?
So if you look here on the
Yep.
screen, this right here, the property line starts where my arrow is.
Yep. Mhm.
A new home on a corner lot is 3 times. So for a 70-foot lot, that's a 6-foot side setback. So you would be 3 times that. But it starts its measurement from the curb.
Okay.
And on a fence, you've got to start at the property line and measure 12 foot back.
Oh, I see, okay. So the encroachment's at 12 feet,
Yeah.
okay.
And the other thing is it cannot project in front of the adjacent house. Now, this graphic didn't copy
Yeah,
very good, but
not quite
this
clear.
property, this line here indicates where the home over to the,
The west,
northwest, okay,
the west,
yeah, so that's where they have to put their fence to not encroach in front of that house, which would put it essentially about here on their yard. So in essence, it does and yet you could do the house at, if this is 12 foot, you could literally put a new home probably closer to about around here is my guess.
So I drove down 62nd Street tonight before I came, starting from Mission Road, heading toward Fontana. So I saw other homes that would be sited similar to this, let's say, between Buena Vista, Catalina, all the way down. There are some homes that do have a fence along the south property line, or close to it. So are those fences further north then?
If you're referring to the home to the east here, this is east, you said, so that is a new home. You might have noticed it was a newer home build, looked like it. That property, I've been in communication with that property owner. They installed that in violation of the code. Became aware of it. We have the new home plans. We showed where they could put it, and he'll be coming to you next month. We will have what we call some legal non-conforming, meaning if they were built like that before the code existed, the code states, we've written it specifically, that they can go back in the same location as long as they do not increase the degree of non-conformity either with materials
Right.
or altering the location or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna see a combination of legal non-conforming and some violations.
And I know this one, when I drove by, there is no fence on this home. I saw some stakes in the ground, so that shows the layout.
That is correct, yes. Mrs. Sparks has put those out so that you could see where the fence is proposed, and there is no fence there now. They're new homeowners.
So Kim, I'm still a little confused here. The south fence line is on the front side of the property, correct? And the driveway goes into the front of it?
This is a side entry.
It's
In
a
other
side
words,
entry.
This is the
Front.
front, and the garage is on the side.
Okay, all right.
This is what you would call a standard corner lot, because the house here is facing the same directions as the house on this block.
so that fence that they're proposing is gonna be 14 feet off the curb?
About 12.
12?
They're wanting to put it right on the property line.
Now, have we, and I haven't been on the board that long, have we approved similar requests as this one?
Yes.
I think we have.
And the issue is, the reason BZA is seeing this is planning spent several months discussing fences on corner lots. It was their intent in the code that they would be able to evaluate this. As we were making some changes to the language, the wording is very key according to our zoning council, and it said shall not. When it says shall not, there is no exception language, which we have written in for PC to address, so it had to come to BZA. We're trying to address that matter at the next meeting, but for now, the only way anyone can seek to put a fence in a location that does not comply with the code is to come to BZA.
Okay, but also what you're saying is we're not setting precedent by approving this.
No.
No, the last one got approved by ZBA with a stipulation that the fence
It was a wrought iron.
Right.
It was not a 6-foot privacy. And I would probably let Ms. Sparks address that, if there's any concern on the material. But this would also be, it's 4 foot, but I think she is talking about it's solid 4 foot. But I'd be willing, I would let her.
So instead of 12 feet from the curb, I mean, this is 12 feet from the curb, but it's supposed to be 18, so we're talking about 6 feet?
Actually,
I'm sorry.
it would be closer to 24 because it has to be 12 foot from the property.
Oh, 12 from prop, okay.
Yeah, so
All right.
we're looking more at 24.
Okay, so it's actually 12 feet further south than it's allowed by the current.
And then you have to consider the adjacent home over here is also set back, so that adds, I think,
Oh, I
2
see.
extra feet.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
the language
Right.
is sort of dual.
Yeah.
Can't project in front of an adjacent property's home,
Right,
and then also the actual footage measure.
okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Okay.
Hearing none, so we'll ask the applicant to come forward and state your name and address for the record, and let's walk through the 5 criteria, your answers.
So I'm Megan Sparks, the property owner. I live at 6148 Montana. And I believe you have the packet of the complete answers. I'm sorry that the image,
Is your microphone on, ma'am?
it's green, but.
Okay. Yeah.
So for criteria 1, in this particular case, as the ordinance currently stands, it would result in a significantly reduced fenceable square footage for the backyard. The estimate from our contractors is more than 30% loss of our backyard. And because of how the properties were set up, the adjacent property is offset from ours, which allows them to be set farther back from the road, and so the build lines are a little bit wonky. So if it, again, was completed in accordance with that part of the ordinance, it would further reduce the backyard. So that's criteria 1. And yeah, as Ms. Young said, the proposed fence is a 4-foot cedar privacy fence. The blue line there, which goes sort of down the carport and faces the courtyard, it's kind of an unusual property for the area, would be a metal fence, but that wouldn't be on the street side. Based on what the contractor said, there's a rather large tree right on the property line, so it would be 14 feet back from the curb if it were approved, just to avoid getting in the way of that tree. I am open to other suggestions, and we did get estimates on a chain link fence if you have visibility concerns. And we also got estimates on a picket fence if you would prefer. Mostly it's to contain dogs and small children. So, and letters were sent to all the surrounding properties inviting feedback, and we had several of our most nearby neighbors come and say that they were in favor, including Zach, who lives right behind us, who would, I guess, be most impacted. He was gonna come and give his support, but he had a tree fall in his house recently, so he's a little busy. For criteria 3, strict application of the provisions of the zoning ordinance would result, again, in a smaller yard than is typical for the area. And yeah, it would be at least a reduction of more than 30% yard space. And our realtor said that adding a fence would add property value, but adding a small yard, fencing in a much smaller yard would not really do anything for our property value. So that would be something for us to consider if we were not able to increase the backyard space. Criteria 4, there's no adverse effects to public welfare. It's going to be strictly on our property line. And we did do a little test to make sure that it didn't diminish sight lines from the stop sign in front of our house because of how far set back our property is from Fontana Street and from the stop sign. And because the fence is only going to be 4 feet, it wouldn't diminish sight lines up the street or coming to the east down 62nd. And it is my understanding for criteria 5 that in the spirit of the ordinance that it was to preserve those sight lines and, to make sure that there was some continuity of the neighborhood since there are so many fences similar to this. We don't feel that putting the fence in place in any fashion would diminish sight lines or diminish the visual appeal of the property. I do understand that corner lots provide some pretty unique challenges, especially when the properties are offset like this. So I'm open to suggestions. This is our first home, so any and all suggestions or recommendations would be helpful. It has been fun so far with all of the surprises. And I'm open to questions.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any questions of the applicant from board members?
4-foot gate.
Mm-hmm.
Is that intended like for riding lawnmowers to go through and?
Yeah, it would accommodate a riding lawnmower. I just use a push mower, so we don't have one. But yeah, there will be a 4-foot gate if you do need a riding lawnmower that would fit through the gate.
Running up to the middle of your house?
So that's actually a carport right there. That blue line on the screen, that's a carport.
But the upper, the 4-foot gate, that's coming up to the side of the house?
Yes, sorry, that one is coming up to the side of the house. And that gate is debatable. That was just a recommendation from our contractor for lawnmowers and things.
How about putting the
Yeah, we talked about pulling it. So you can't really see it in the image because there's a tree, but the property does, the roof of the garage does extend sort of about 4.5 feet past.
I'm talking about moving the gate.
So that would go into our neighbor's side yard. So we would want to talk to our neighbors about that.
Other than having the gate and the fence forward to the property.
Oh, moving it back? That whole line back.
I'm assuming it's west, so that would be.
Okay.
You got a little,
Member Stafford, are you talking about this right here?
where the word gate is.
Yes.
Physically where the word gate is.
Yeah.
That-
So move that line.
That area right there.
To the
is
west.
moving the gate, which I'm assuming is that green dot.
Yes. The green dot would be a gate.
To the west, which I'm assuming is to the left.
So that is actually the roof line right there. But we could move it back to, based on my understanding, all the way back to being in line with the red line on the southern piece.
But where it is now isn't out of compliance.
No, I was just curious, it just seems that you've got a little square there. I've seen more where they line up in the back of the house rather than halfway up the side.
Yeah, it's been a point of debate between the contractor and myself. So his thinking was is that we could put like a small little storage shed for outdoor garden things back there, but I discussed moving it back so that it was a straight line and had a nice rectangle to it.
I was just asking a discussion with that idea.
Yeah, we've discussed a lot with the contractor.
I,
But
I would clarify that this right here is code compliant, yeah.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Okay, just another point of clarification. On this north fence that we're talking about, there already is a fence in there. And you're going to put up something like what's already there. Just
Yeah.
replace the
we're going to replace
dilapidated
it because
fence.
it's in disrepair right now. It's kind of relying on the trees that it's leaning on for support. So we're going to replace that whole thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf of this application from the public? I don't see anyone. I don't know, Kim, are people able to raise their hands remotely or not?
Well, I'm just checking. This
Okay.
is staff that's watching. 'Cause
Okay.
One was texting me on the
Okay.
microphone. Can't hear, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just looking. I'm pretty sure that's all staff
Okay.
watching.
All right, well then I guess that will close the testimony, and I guess it's now time for the board to express its views on this, and I'll start with Peter if you have some thoughts about this application.
It's supposed to be red. Got it. Okay. I thought it was supposed to be green. All right. Okay. I guess in general, I understand this because when I did drive down, it seemed like the way it was staked, it didn't seem like it was a concern, especially if it's 4 feet high, that it was going to block any public safety or any vehicular, views. So it seems that I could support this. I just couldn't see the home that's west of it. It's not shown on this map how close it is and how it's located. So it's a little hard for me to compare the two. But I think given this particular diagram, I think it's something I would support the recommendation of staff.
Bill?
I too would support the recommendation of the staff to approve.
Marcia?
Yeah, I'm in favor of approval.
And I agree with the other people on the board.
And I do as well. I think the 5 criteria have been met. I thought the applicant did a nice job of walking us through that. And I think the chair would entertain a motion to approve subject to the 2 conditions, I think, requested by staff, which would be the, I guess, the timing of obtaining a building permit. Is that right? That's right. And then what's the other one? I can't.
They have to obtain a permit 1 year.
All right.
They have to obtain a permit.
So the chair would entertain a motion to approve subject to the 2 recommendations of staff. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? And I guess we'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, yeah, the variance is approved, and thank you very much. And now I'm looking here, do we have anything else to address tonight, Kim?
Chair, no, we do not have anything else. We tentatively, the deadline, now I've got the mics too hot. The deadline for the meeting, August 29th, is this Friday, and I do anticipate we will have an application. Oh, I would We had an application for a encroachment, but they were pressed for time. It's item B under new business. I would like that since I did notice it. Have you spoken to them, Boz? Do we know?
No, they're putting it on hold.
Okay. I don't think we need to continue it. I'll
Okay.
just renotice
Okay.
if I need to do that, so I've got time. So potentially, we have a meeting on August 29th, and I personally would like to thank Mrs. Sparks' patience for my not getting your notice in, so.
Okay, thank you. So now it's time for the favorite motion of the chair, that motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
I motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.